Hello, my name is Brandon Sky, and I'm going to be telling you about penicillium, and in particular, penicillin. Penicillium is a genus of simple blue-green molds, which grow on rotten foods, like breads and oranges and tomatoes and peaches and strawberries and cheeses and all the other foods. It is also the producer of the first ever antibiotic, penicillin. Antibiotics are substances which kill bacteria. Penicillin has saved countless lives over the years, and has helped us thwart nasty bacteria and infections. Penicillium was first documented by Johann Heinrich Friedrich Link in 1809. Penicillium can be useful, for instance, in making cheeses. It is used to ripen and flavor brie, camembert, Colomiers, and a variety of French goat cheeses, according to cheesemaking.com. But penicillium can also be harmful, like when it goes in your food, and in some cases produces poisons. Molds reproduce by spewing out spores, which float around in the air until they land on a suitable host. Now, take a deep breath. According to Miss Wang,
you're breathing mold spores all the time. They're always pervasive in the air.
That means you just inhaled mold babies. Gross, huh? Once the mold has found a suitable host bit of food, it starts to produce spores of its own, putting more and more mold out there. At this point, most people just throw the food away, as some forms of mold produce toxins, and it's just kind of gross. On the other hand, some crazy cheese people have been known to keep it. There are over 300 species of penicillium. Some of them spoil food, producing poisons and toxins to make people sick, while others are benign or even helpful. One of these helpful strains is the family Penicillium chrysogenum, which synthesizes penicillin. Penicillin, the first antibiotic, has been invaluable in the fight against disease. Penicillin was first recognized for its extraordinary antibacterial properties in 1928 by Alexander Fleming, when he realized that the mold was growing on his Staphylococcus culture. Instead of throwing it away, he studied it and noticed that the mold, which he later identified as Penicillium chrysogenum notatum, was killing bacteria. He realized that this was the result of the mold producing an antibacterial substance. He tested it against certain bacteria to great success. He then tried to isolate the active ingredient. This was a more difficult task, as we now know that the penicillin molecule is very unstable, and heat easily deactivates it and makes it useless. He was able to acquire a more concentrated dosage of penicillin by growing the penicillium in a fluid, creating sort of mold soup, which contained penicillin. He named the chemical he had found penicillin, as a reference to the penicillium mold from which it was acquired. He found that this chemical had amazing antibiotic powers, and that even when diluted 800 times, it was still effective against some forms of Staphylococcus. Much later, during World War II, two scientists named Howard Florey and Ernest Chain were the first to isolate pure penicillin. They injected the chemical into mice with infections. The mice's infections cleared with no side effects. In the First World War, there were no antibiotics, and so scratches and what we would now consider to be non-fatal gunshot wounds were a death sentence for soldiers, as infection would set in and kill them. In the Second World War, penicillin had been discovered and put to good use. As a result of this, in World War I, for every 10 soldiers dead of combat wounds, there were 11 dead of infection. But in World War II, after penicillin, there were 6 infection deaths for every 100 combat deaths, a big change. Penicillin is such a good antibiotic because of its molecular structure. Penicillin has a beta-lactam group, which splits open in the presence of an enzyme that bacteria use to produce their cell walls. The penicillin then bonds with the enzyme, causing it to be unable to produce cell walls. According to my experts,
the bacteria would leak. I guess if they didn't have cell walls, everything would come out. Their internal structure would break down.
The problem for bacteria is this: their cell walls are much like our skin. Without it, all of their organs come out and they die. This can be good for humans to fight nasty infections and bacteria, but it can also be bad for us, like if it kills the bacteria that live in your gut and process your food. Some bacteria, though, can be treated with penicillin and be unharmed. This is a phenomenon known as antibiotic resistance, and it is fueled by natural selection. The way this works is that certain bacteria have a gene that allows them to produce an enzyme that breaks the beta-lactam ring before it can bond with the cell enzymes. These bacteria are unharmed when the penicillin is administered, and so they reproduce and make more bacteria with the same gene. The bacteria without that gene die, and so cannot reproduce. Penicillium, particularly the chrysogenum family that creates penicillin, is remarkable because of both how common and how useful it is. Penicillin is a wonder drug, but it is also very easy to produce, making it even more special. The penicillin taken from the penicillium molds have proven invaluable in our fight against infection and death, from saving the lives of our soldiers overseas to saving the lives of our children here at home. Although penicillin is just a simple bread mold, the penicillin it creates as a defense mechanism has helped the human race live longer and better. Although antibiotic resistance may prove a challenge, and we may soon be unable to use penicillin, the advances it has spawned will keep us safe, at least for a little while. And for any of you who didn't get the reference to the basketball player slam dunking a sandwich in the trash can, here's a clip of Space Jam.